Welcome, Wargamers. Join your hosts, Alco and Monty, two Canadian wargaming enthusiasts, as we explore all aspects of tabletop wargaming. We roll dice, talk tactics, share hobby hacks, and explore new tabletop systems, all on the Trident Wargaming Podcast.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode. Today's a little different. We're doing kind of a hobby spotlight on just people in the community. And today I have a good friend here, Phil. And
hello.
How's it going?
Good. Very good.
Excellent. So Phil's one of our local guys here. He's a gamer, does painting commissions, a hobbyist. He even has a couple of little players in his family as well.
That's right, up and coming.
So today we wanted to kind of do a spotlight on My Little Pony Game Studio, which is the studio that Phil runs. And has been very, very successful with his studio and the commissions and just gaming and hobbying that he does. So, well done.
Thank you. Yeah.
But before we get started, let's talk a little bit about what you're working on right now.
Right now, well, there's always two sides to that. There's what you're physically working on, and then the gears in your brain, what you want to be working on, and what you're like planning, midterm, long term. I jumped on some big 40K commission work right now, which is fun. That's the game I started with, so it's really, I guess, nice to go back to like your roots if you've been away from it for a long time. I'm sure I see a lot of people post on the Facebook groups for the different war games, saying I started with this game back in middle school or high school or whatever it was.
Yep.
And it's always your first love, right? So 40K, I'm doing a big Eldar army in like a kind of a grimy, gritty, dark kind of theme, and then trying to sneak some like little Battletech projects in just for some people. I had a couple people reach out for like, a lance here or a star there kind of thing. So try and do like a chunk of Eldar, a little bit of Battletech, like one squad, nice. And a bunch more Eldar.
And they're looking really, really good. I'm actually looking on your page right now, and that color, the bone and like.
Oh, thank you.
Glossy, like that glossy looking black that you have.
Yeah, there's a I think I looked up like Crone World Eldar, like when the first time I painted Eldar for myself, like years and years ago. Third Eye Nuke Studio, I think was the one that had done it, and like Google search or whatever. I think back then it was like Cool Mini or Not I was looking on.
Okay.
And there's like really simplistic scheme, like at the time looked super intense. I was like, how would you like you just said, like how do you achieve all these like matte finishes and gloss finishes and all these cool color transitions and stuff? Like it just looked super cool and unique. I was like, there's no way I'd be able to figure this out. And then like now 7 years later, I'm like, okay, it's like half an hour with an airbrush.
Yeah.
It's easy, but it looks super cool. Yeah, so it's been fun to kind of like recreate it, but like your own spin, I guess.
Nice.
On something, because you never want to like one for one recreate something, because then whenever somebody compliments, like I like that, or the colors look cool, or you always feel like you're just ripping off the inspiring source.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's nice to have like something and you can relate to people. This is where kind of the concept came from, but this is how I interpret it.
Nice. That's pretty cool. It's nice
to... And yourself? Oh, go ahead.
Myself, lately it has been some Titanicus, Adeptus Titanicus. Mainly just trying to get my shit together.
Is it for Titanicus? Sorry, would that be like faction, like house factions?
I'm not. Yeah, so it's right now. I had previously done a Legio Solaria,
Okay.
and it's one of those Legio houses, like the larger Titans, that the color scheme for it is very unique because you don't really see stuff like that too much, and it's they're green and red, but they have this like spotted, speckled kind of like faded white.
Oh, cool. Like an accent panel or accent color?
It's all on their panel, but it's kind of like a leopard almost, right? But it's
Oh,
just
cool.
it's underneath green tones and then speckled with like white. And at first, I ended up doing some sponge work with the greens, and I actually started getting like a texture to my panels,
Yeah.
just because the paint was a bit thicker, and you're applying it, and it applies. You start layering on top of everything, so you got a
Okay.
rough surface.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I went to where my sister works at the beauty department in the pharmacy area, and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's like, you got some makeup applicators I could get, and yeah, she's like, take these are really good, and I started using these makeup applicators for
Like a sponge?
Yeah,
Like
it's
a
just,
little. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay.
it's,
Okay.
it's,
Yeah.
half the size of your pinky nail kind of thing, and
Yeah.
just taking white and like doing the dry
I
brush
just
thing.
I just looked up the. I'm just getting a picture of what you're talking about. Yeah, I just looked up the scheme. It looks good. Yeah, yeah. No, it's like a green like weather beaten
Yeah,
kind of thing. I like that. That's
right?
nice.
So like, I had originally left it with the green and made it like a really muted green, and I liked it.
Hmm.
And then
Yeah.
I started looking more at the pictures, and I was like, something's missing, something's missing, something's missing. And so I just one day decided to just start dabbing on it in a circular motion, and kind of going from the center, more concentrated kind of, and then outwards, and
Hmm.
staggering and separating the dots kind of thing, but not really dots,
Yep.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Like
it
building up your texture kind
yeah,
of thing, or
and it
your. I don't know what you mean.
and it worked. Like it was a trial, and it worked out really well. So I went with it, and now that's going to be pretty much the basis of my paint job. Of course, writing it down on my little notebook because I'll forget
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Definitely.
But yeah, there's that. I've been doing that, and then like taking like a silver marker and doing the trimming over again with the silver
Okay.
instead of
Okay.
I had like a beaten like copper that I used, but it wasn't quite the color that they used in the pictures.
Gotcha. Like the trim outline.
Yeah,
I know Bill was saying he was looking at like the Sharpie markers
yeah, exactly.
for the
That's what
panels.
I'm using.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
so yeah, and then that worked, and once I get all the Titans into that same kind of state, then I'll decide if I'm going to do either a contrast skeletal horde wash, or I'll go back with some of the AK and try that filter kind of thing. So
Oh, nice. Okay, like to make it more of a gold or a bronze.
yeah, just to mute it down a little bit more, and
Okay.
kind of grime it up. Not as much as my white scars like I did. Like, that was a lot of covering of lots of
Yeah.
models and a lot
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
Q-tips. So so maybe just in certain spots, right? So
Yeah, I know what you mean. When you say Q-tips, I always think back to, well, I guess like a big chain of mental events. There's like I learned how to do oil washing like years and years ago, and it was like one of those like hobby unlock moments,
mhm.
where like you can like look back and there's like a pivotal point where you turned a corner and you broadened your horizon, like expanded like your toolkit by like a huge amount, and then like from that you like kind of springboard into like a bunch of other avenues. But I remember I was using oil washing for a lot of stuff, and like anytime I could use it, I felt it was like the go-to thing, and it worked really well for a lot of stuff. But I would always get these little wisps of Q-tips on my models all the
Mhm.
time, and I just hate holding my models up to like the light and pulling them off.
Or a
But like if
picture.
you don't get exactly, yeah, like you take a finished picture, and it's like all you can see is these like little white wisps everywhere. You're like, I missed one. and I was at a 40K doubles tournament with a friend, and one of the guys on the other side of the table was like, "Can I look at your model?" And it's like, "Sure, yeah." So he picks it up. He's like, "Wow, it looks like nice color choices here. This is like nice contrast." I was like, "Oh, thanks." I was like really proud of it. He's like, "What's the little white pubic hairs all over
God.
your model?" I was like, "Oh man," it was just instantly like, oh, such a deflated balloon feeling. I was
Just
like, "Oh,
face
yeah."
palm. Yeah.
Yeah, I knew exactly what he meant too. I was like, I tried to get them all off there.
I,
Stupid Q-tips.
I know I've caught myself with like the pictures and like on some of the
Mhm.
mechs, and I'm like, oh, I can see the little squiggly line.
Yeah. Or it
Okay,
gets stuck in the
Photoshop that.
paint. Yeah. It's like under the paint layer, then it gets varnished on, and you paint over top
Oh,
of it. So it's like forever, just like a little texture wisp. Yeah.
yeah. So it's kind of you're damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of
Exactly.
thing
Yeah.
with it.
I found
But
I found like Q-tip brand, like the actual brand, has
way more.
way more saturated cotton on it. So I go to the dollar store and I buy the cheapest kind. It's like
Yep.
with the plastic middle on it, and
Yep.
it's and it's like synthetic cotton, and it's wound way tighter, so it comes off less. You think like better is more expensive is better, but it's the opposite in this case.
It's funny you say that because that's exactly what I did too. It's like, okay, I want the one with the plastic shaft on it. They're way better
Yeah,
and cheaper.
yeah, yeah. Give me the cheapest ones. Yeah, I
Get me
bought a bunch
1,200.
from Superstore, and I dipped it in like the mineral spirits, and it just like it's all the little wisps like sloughed off onto my paper towel, and I
Ooh,
was like, that's not good.
it
Yeah,
just
that's
melted.
whatever fake cotton that was did not like the mineral spirits.
Oh, the stories, eh?
Yeah, I saw your Free Worlds League looked really good too. Like your Merrick ones you
The
painted
lens.
up.
Yep.
Yeah, that got me excited. I got a four mech thing but it's like the purple Merrick, the Merrick
It's
Militia,
the
I
militia.
guess.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
so it's not. I'd like to do the white one like you did there. That'll hopefully in the near future I'll get something like that.
it's funny because ever since I was introduced to the AK Interactive Streaking Grime,
Hmm.
um, it's like all I want to do is paint white because it
Yeah.
turns out so well, right?
It does. It does. And it's like one of those colors it's so hard to do. Like unless you have like a plan for it. It's like you can like your white scars or the Merrick ones, and like everybody's like, "How'd you do it? It looks so good."
Uh-huh.
It's such uh, a satisfying thing to pull off. Yeah.
I think, and it's funny because I know I was talking with Bill, and he got some messages about, um, you know, uh, doing some little video vlogs of how we do certain things and this and that kind of thing, right? Like hobby
Hmm.
hacks
Oh yeah.
and that was one of them. I was like, I'm just gonna show guys how I do it, and it's literally gonna be like, this is your model painted.
Yeah.
This is your model with AK. And just wait
Yeah.
for her to be like, oh my goodness.
The before and after. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It's just like it's this like cool unveiling, but it's like what? It's like two steps.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's anticlimactic from what you think it's going to be.
Well, and it's funny because I talked with Hal, which is
Mhm.
a good friend of ours who's played a lot of games and been in the community for a long time as well. And like he sent me a picture and he was like, "Damn you, Andy!" And he it was AK Interactive, right?
Yeah.
And we were talking and it was like, that'd be really good for your Comstar, you know.
Oh yeah.
And
Definitely. Yeah.
and we know Hal, he struggles with painting.
Mhm.
But any kind of little easy advice or anything like that to help him out as well is great, and it's a really good tool for that, right?
Yeah.
It's a little
Yeah.
messy,
Definitely.
but
Yeah. Well, it's nice because you can do it with like a brush or an airbrush. Like it's
Mhm.
very adaptable,
Exactly.
and a lot of colors. I find like I think I got like the two different colors of streaking grime, where they had like a more reddy and then a more brown, or maybe it was a green one in there too. I can't remember. They
Oh yeah,
changed their
it's
formula.
streaking grime, and there's like a winter streaking grime.
Yeah, and then like a heavy. Yeah, exactly. And then there's a heavy. Was it like dark brown wash and a couple other ones now, and it's like
Yeah.
they're very minor differences between them. But like if you do it on like a test, like a test color, you can definitely see it's like better in the recesses for certain colors. I guess the different tones.
No, definitely. And do you, when you do your AK, is that your
Mhm.
final step for when you do your painting, or do you go back and start, tweaking and like putting some extra
More highlights
layers?
and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, at first, yeah. At first, it was like my final like finish, like your cockpit jeweling, your metals, all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Um, and and now, it really depends. I've been trying for probably the past 2 years, I guess, to really get more comfortable with doing doing things different ways, like doing like metallics across a bunch of different models or a bunch of different projects, but approaching them in different ways. So I'm not always doing it the exact same way because I know
Right.
it felt safe and very comfortable for such a long time. But you get into like a pitfall where it's like you need certain products, or you have to do something certain steps, and then they're always done the same way. And it was comfortable, but it was like limiting at the same time. So now I'll try and do, like I was doing some large scale Battletech models, like 15 millimeter, like the 6-7 inch tall kind of guys.
Yep. Yep.
And for those ones, yeah, I was trying to make sure that it was like a dark brown wash from AK Interactive, and I would try and do that last. So it was kind of like everything's done, the cockpit's done, the metals are done, all the highlights and chipping and stuff is done. I do that. I clean it off with the Q-tips, and then I varnish it to seal it, and then it's complete. I can mount it on a base and stick it on my shelf, whatever. But
Nice.
I noticed sometimes when I look across a couple of the models I'd finished, a lot of the highlights and stuff and the chipping, like you have like a little rust spot or like a chip paint spot, and you go in and you like highlight the underside of it with like a lighter color to
Yep.
kind of make it stand out. Yeah. So a lot of those like little chips were darker than I wanted them to be, or completely like obliterated in some cases. So
Yeah.
so now, especially with like stuff like camo, which I've been trying to practice more as well. Um, I do it like midway through a project, and then I leave my metallics. I don't do them at all until after the AK, and then that way I find the metallics have like a lot more truer shine to them because before
Okay.
the AK you varnish, and then you do your AK interactive, like your enamels and stuff, varnish again to seal it and to like correct the texture and stuff, and then I do the metallics afterwards. Generally now,
Hmm. Hmm. That's
but but
it's interesting
but
to.
like yeah, it depends on like what kind of finish you want as well. Like if you want like a satin finish, then it's not so bad because then your metals don't lose all the luster. But like I generally varnish something maybe 3, 4, 5 times across the course of like
Oh
painting
wow.
something. Yeah, like just to like lock in each layer. It's almost like a save point, right? So if you do a bunch of colors and some highlights or something, then you can varnish it. And then if you're doing edge highlighting, say, or like putting some shadows in the recess or something, and you don't like what you did, you can just take a Q-tip or like a brush with some airbrush cleaner on it and basically like wipe it back to wherever you were before you started that step.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. I've done that a couple times in the past. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
good little hobby hack for sure. For
And
sure.
then if you drop your model or something, there's less chance it's gonna
Oh,
get like
yeah.
a
Massive
big
pewter.
scuff
But
mark. Yeah, then it just explodes.
so if you guys are like interested in seeing what Phil does, you can check him out on Facebook at MLPG Studio, My Little Pony Game Studio, and he's also on Instagram as well.
Mhm.
Check out his work. He's got tons of pictures. He's been like really heavy into BattleTech the last few months for sure.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
it's been a
and
good feeling.
and let me tell you, some fantastic work.
Thanks.
I know the Davians are still like, you know, they just look so good.
The Davian Guard, like the blue one.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I like that scheme.
I'm
It's sharp.
sure you've had tons of people like ask you, "How'd you get that blue?" You know.
Yeah, yeah. I'd say like anytime you post up, I always admire people's stuff. Like I'll spend probably the same as you, just like half hour, an hour, just like scrolling through the groups, like checking out all the sweet paint jobs, and
Mhm.
like whether they're like highly detailed or like very simply done. It's like cool color combinations, like different like effects people have done. It's always very interesting. I generally don't reach out too much, I guess, because you'll see like somebody ask in the comments and like, how did you do that? And then there's no response for like 3 or 4 days. So
Yeah.
I was I was trying not to like PM the person, just because I know a lot of the times it can be like a little weird to get like a PM out of the blue.
Yeah,
But
I've done it too. Like where I just make a little comment.
yeah, kind of like saying like the whole following thing without like writing following, just in case like they do a like a paint list later on, you can like come back and like check up on it.
Exactly.
But I do really appreciate that when like somebody's got like a good rundown of like how they've done something specifically. Like I always just like screenshot it on my phone, then like take a picture, screenshot the image as well, so they're beside each other like in my screenshot folder. So I do try and do that whenever somebody asks like, how did you achieve this or that. I'll just make like a big in-depth kind of like spiel on it, and then I'll just copy it to my clipboard on my phone, and that way I can paste it onto whoever asks about it.
Nice. Yeah, it's always good to share that kind of stuff and help guys who are trying to better their painting or whatever. Right?
Definitely.
So,
yep.
But yeah, just blows my mind sometimes when I see your stuff. So
thank you.
But that was kind of our hobby side of things, which is great. How did you when did you get into like the hobby, the commission painting? What really drew you into to get to the point that you're at right now?
I guess now it's something I'm pursuing more than I had in the past, because previously I worked full time. Like now I'm a stay-at-home dad, and before I had a career job in trades, so it was more of like a hobby thing. And I started off painting, just painting your own stuff to play games.
Right.
And originally I had used actually a lot of painting services, like ones from the States, from the UK, from Poland, like all over. You want to try a bunch of different spots, and I wasn't comfortable with my own stuff, and you fall into that pitfall of looking at pictures online, and everything looks so amazing, especially to a new player. Like everything is just
the heavy metal effect. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, you're blown away by it. Just like there's no way I could ever achieve what all these people are doing. And so I would buy a lot of stuff painted on like eBay or whatever, or locally from guys that have been hobbyists for a long time.
Okay.
But I'd also send stuff away to get painted, and sometimes you get it back and it looks awesome and you're super psyched about it, and sometimes you get it back and it's like, the pictures look great, and then you realize that like there's a lot of photoshopping that happens. There's a lot of like color correcting, a lot of like lighting and angles and
saturation.
Unprimed models in the bottom 2/3 of the model or whatever. And so eventually I just got to the point where it's like, no, I gotta like learn how to do it myself, because this is a fun hobby. It's an awesome thing to do. I want to do it long term. Like I want to play games forever and try out different stuff. So I got to get to the point where I'm comfortable doing my own stuff, which is tough. I see a lot of people on both sides of the fence. Guys that love to play, but they don't like to paint, which I totally get. And then other guys that love to play, or sorry, to paint their stuff, but they don't get as much time to play. So when I was working full time, it was more of like a side gig. I would paint a lot of stuff for myself because I was kind of a meta chaser in the games that I was playing. I'll admit that. I was a big kind of flavor of the month kind of guy playing GW games. I'd always buy and paint up whatever the best army was, to do the best that I could, and then I would sell whatever I was previously playing, hopefully before it fell out of favor with GW and it was hard to sell. But yeah, so I ended up painting a lot of stuff and then selling it, painting a lot of stuff, selling it. And just the faster I could paint and the more dynamic stuff I could paint, the easier it was to sell and the more enjoyable it was to try and paint. And then, eventually just kind of turned into something where people were asking not just to buy the stuff that I was selling, but they were saying like, hey, I like what you did here, or I would like you to paint something like this. Could you do it? And it was a really cool concept to paint something for somebody else, just like a straight interaction like that, like not having it be something that was listed for sale. And I think that's what kicked off in my mind the possibility to do like commission work, I guess, on a small scale.
Nice, nice. And like, your painting over the years of doing it, obviously, has gone to this point, like increased and gotten better, and you tried different techniques
Yeah,
and
definitely.
whatnot. So was a lot of it like, did you take a course? Did you um, have a mentor for any of it, or was it all kind of like self-taught and you did your research, you know, YouTube
Oh yeah,
videos, of course,
yeah, definitely. um, I'd say a little bit of everything, to be honest. There were people that I certainly learned a lot from. Um, like I guess when I mentioned before, like those kind of hobby check marks, like those kind of like unlock. It's like
right?
I always felt like it was like an
Achievements.
achievement pops up on
Yeah.
Steam kind of thing. Yeah,
Bling.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I remember I bought a Grey Knight army from my friend Barry Gurgle, who lives in town here, and everything looked so like pristine and beautiful. And I was worried that I couldn't, I couldn't paint to that kind of quality. But he came out and he showed me like how he airbrushed the weapon effects and stuff, how he did like what the types of paints that he used for airbrushing, and that made me feel a lot more comfortable. And
Nice.
then I ended up painting an army, kind of to match. I would say not the same quality, but kind of to match, and that was a big confidence boost. And then a couple other people too, yeah, just guys in our community, the Hobby Night in Canada guys, everyone, I'd say all of them, Ward, Steve Lind, Mike Sawada, Tom,
Hmm.
were very helpful. They all had excellent tips to share. I did go to a couple how to paint things. There were some like pretty big, I guess I say pretty big, but probably some of the biggest like names in miniature painting came to Calgary a couple times. We have an organization in Alberta here. I think it's Alberta. What is it? Alberta. Oh man, it's a weird acronym. It's a joke one. It's called AMPSA, Alberta Miniature Painters Society of Alberta, something like that. It's really
Okay.
goofy. It's a joke thing, I guess the name wise. But Dallas, he organizes and brings in these painters from all over the world. So he brought in Servio. Do you remember that Daniel Craig Space Marine that was on Facebook like a couple years ago? It was a Crimson Fist, and it had Daniel Craig's face. I don't know if you saw
Ooh,
that one.
I don't remember that one actually.
Okay. Or there was another like large scale one in like the Crystal Brush competition, and it was a space wolf, and it had like a wolf beside him. It was
Okay.
like a big diorama, beautiful, like just stunning stuff. Sergio, oh, I can't remember his last name. It's Spanish, obviously,
Does
but
it
like
start with a
one of
C?
the Calvio, Calvio,
Cavaltor or
yes,
something like that?
yeah, 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 yeah. I can't remember how to pronounce it, but he came to Calgary. I think it was like 2017, 18, and Dallas had organized to fly him out, and it was part of his like North American tour. He did a bunch of stops and had a bunch of workshops, and it was like you go for a 2-day thing. They supply you with a model. You bring all your own paints and your airbrush and stuff, and they teach you how to paint. And it was informative, but at the same time, it's somebody that's like so above your skill ceiling, teaching you how they paint. You really only pull away like 20 to 30% of like whatever they're teaching you, right? It's just for them it's like a day at the office, but for you it's like mind-blowing, you know. Supposed to be
No.
like
Yeah.
epiphany level stuff. It's just hard to wrap it all your head around everything.
Well, it's not just
But
like you snap your fingers and you got it, right? Like it's.
yeah, no, definitely no. Like it was I liked how he would walk around and like give you one-to-one feedback. That was very helpful because I've watched a lot of YouTube videos, like you say, a lot of like back when people used to do blogs, like
Mm-hmm.
painting blogs, where it's just pictures and like rundowns between each picture. Tons of those, and you get a lot of information from those, but it's a whole nother thing to have somebody over your shoulder saying like, no, more contrast, like more purples, get aggressive, be excited, and you're like, yeah, and getting all fired up about it. And I painted like some eyes on this barbarian that we were working on, and I was like, yeah, this looks good. And then he looks at it, he's just like, oh my god, he's like, that's the googliest face I've ever seen. You look at it again, you're like, yeah, that's some bad googly eyes. You're right. That's
Oh wow.
but then but then he takes a brush in your hand, like paints them black again, and then like over the course of like 3 minutes, paints in these like stunning looking eyes, and you're just like, oh, that's how you do it. Okay, all right, yeah, all right. Totally feel comfortable painting eyes now. So yeah, like those were awesome courses. I would say like a lot of value in them. You're not gonna. You have to be flexible with learning new things.
Right.
Yeah, I know there was another one, Lands. I can't even. Definitely can't pronounce that one. But a lot of the guys that paint box art for like a lot of the big companies, and like people that sell busts and stuff like that. I went to another one, I think in 2019 in Calgary, and it was, yeah, super informative. A lot of like non-metal metallics, a lot of undertones, like how to paint, how to pre-shade stuff, but not just like zenithal shading. Doing a lot more like interesting colors underneath of a skin tone to have it have different textures and shades.
The different hues and whatnot. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I don't use any of that so much now. Like I tried it, a couple months ago, painting this like um, Jade Falcon kind of themed elemental I was working on.
Was that
I was like, all
the
right,
bust or the
yeah,
okay.
the bust, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. My daughter wanted a pilot for a robot game we always play, so I was like, oh, I'll paint her
Oh
an
yeah.
elemental lady.
Yeah, I'm looking at it
And I was
right
like,
now.
yeah, so I started off with like a green face, like I painted her like the Hulk, and then I was just like, I remember like green for like shadows underneath, and it's you end up picking up a lot of information that you apply to other aspects. So you may be working on a lot of non-metallic metals or something like that, or a lot of like skin or something. Someone's showing you how to do things, but you don't necessarily use it for that same application later on down the road. So you might have learned how to paint skin, but maybe you paint a lot of robots now, like you're playing War Machine or something, or 40K and you're painting a lot of Titans, but you'll remember that information. So when you go to paint, like a red Titan or something, you'll remember in the back of your mind that like I could use dark browns or dark purples or something to shade the red instead of a dark red, and that'll make it much more dynamic looking than
Amplifies
it
it,
would have
yeah.
been. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've seen, looking at all the miniatures that you've been painting in the last few months here and stuff, I can see that effect on some of your miniatures, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You can see there's just a little bit of a different hue underneath,
Definitely. Yeah.
and it's interesting to see because like then you start thinking about it like myself, okay, maybe I should try that myself and see how it works for me, right? Like, because everybody has
Definitely.
their own different way of painting, and be it,
Hmm.
like your commission work, studio quality, or, like tabletop quality, like myself, right? Like, it's always cool to see and listen and hear and even try out these different little techniques and just see where you can go from there, right? So
Yeah. 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 A lot of times you'll have like myself, probably the same as a lot of people, have like a kind of a standard process for like how they paint a miniature.
hmm
Like I love watching Duncan Rhodes' stuff, when he was with GW doing like
yeah,
was it Warhammer Weekly? I know it was the Warhammer community page would always promote it, but there's like the Warhammer painting channel. I
yeah,
can't
his
remember.
little painting sessions that we would do and whatnot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and like it was like the perfect demeanor of a person to like sit down, and I always appreciated how he would show. Well, okay, I guess 50-50. Appreciate, but also frustrating. how he would like show you a model, and then like he'd be like, okay, we're gonna put the base coat on like the entire model with like this like large brush. I'm just like, just airbrush it, but
Yeah.
like that's half of my mind is saying, but the other half is just like clapping like bravo. This is for people of all calibers. Like anybody can pick up a brush and put the base coat on because they're seeing you do it. So
Yeah.
it makes complete sense to me. Yes, definitely. But then the other half of my brain's just like, you can save so much time. You should promote airbrush usage. uh,
That's funny. That's funny.
but yeah, you're like watching somebody paint like all these steps where it's like base color, shade, redo your base color, do a highlight, maybe do a second highlight, then move on to the next kind of color. And that's a lot of the times, what I would do. But it was a lot more exciting, I guess, to start developing like different ways to do things, or just even shortcuts, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of times I'll see people comment, whether it's on Reddit or Instagram, they'll guess, like, was that a this color, and to start, and then like a zenithal shade, like everyone's just obsessed with like, is that a zenithal shade of this whatever color as well? And for, I guess, those people that don't know, zenithal shading is like highlighting from above your model. So if you have a model that's primed black, and then you spray from the top down, holding your model in your hand, looking at the top of it, like a white or a light gray or something, it makes the effect that like light is being cast down on your model, so that you'll have lighter portions of the model on top and then darker on the bottom. So you could put an ink or something over top of that, and it would have a kind of rough transition of like dark, if it's a red ink, like dark red in the recesses, to bright red on top.
Right.
So a lot of people guess that's what you've done, but it's very very like one-dimensional feeling a lot of the time. So I find I'll do a bunch of different highlighting through successively brighter paints, like for those Davians, like you're mentioning before. You start with like a black, just a black primer, then like a dark blue, more or less in a zenithal pattern. But then you'll start zeroing in on like shoulders, head, tops of like knees or like legs,
Yeah.
spots where light would hit with like a medium blue, and then with like not quite a light blue, because I find blue is a hard color for me to paint.
Oh, tell
It's
me about it.
easy. Yeah, right. Like blue and red is another one too, where it's easy to like wash out a whole area of a model that you're doing by going too bright of a highlight. But you're just kind of like easing in little very focused highlights. And then a lot of the times now, I'll just come in after feel like I'm done painting a model with my airbrush, and I'll do inks, like thinned out inks with water from below, like a reverse zenithal,
Okay.
and it brings back a lot of the contrast punch, because a lot of the times you will get carried away doing highlights, and you're going to have it way brighter or a lot more washed out than you want it to be.
Yeah.
So by coming in from the bottom, like 45-degree angle, with like a medium shadow, and then from the very bottom with a dark shadow again, you can really color correct a lot of that stuff.
I haven't tried the underneath way that you just mentioned, but I'm going to have to give that a try. So
Yeah, I would say like definitely just thin out. I think it was one of the courses I took. I think it was the Sergio one, where I had, I thought I had done some pretty, pretty nice blending up to like what I thought was the highest color at the top for doing skin. Like, you paint like a light skin tone. And then he came over and he's like, no, like way brighter, like turn it up to like 11 on the top parts. And I was like, whoa, okay, all right. So I did it. Like he did like a small portion on like a ab muscle or something, and I was like, oh my god. it's
Yeah.
like Electric City over here. So that he went down the line to like the other people, and I was like, okay. So I did the same thing on all the other parts, and he came back and he's just like, yes, good. And I was like, it looks terrible. Like in my mind I was like, it looks crazy. And then he showed me, he's like, all right, and I get to break out like a purple paint or a dark brown flesh tone or something, and then you flip your model over, and then you from the bottom side put a lot of like shading in, very like translucent, like a lot of thin layers over and over and over again. And then I go back and I look at a lot of the projects and artwork that he's done, and you can tell, he's like dialed it up to like 11 or 12 with the highlights, and then flipped it over and used a lot of these like thin transparent things to saturate the bottom side, and it makes it look so I don't know what the term would be, I guess. Just it's like such a smooth gradient going across the model, that you like wonder how it's possible until you see somebody do it, and you're like, it makes total sense.
Yeah, but it makes the like those shaded portions like pretty prominent too, right? Like,
Mhm.
and then of course going from the dark to light, you can really see the change, and you can see the shot. Like I'm looking at your I think it's an enforcer,
Okay. Yep.
and you can see the dark spots on the panels, on the darker, the angle panels that are towards the bottom part of the mech, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Is that the Lyran Guard ones or the
Fedcom. Oh,
like the
yeah,
blue and white?
um, two Davian lances prepped.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
Dave.
it's
Okay,
before
gotcha.
the pinstripes, I think. So,
Okay, okay.
but
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So like if you have like a rounded shoulder pad or something like on an Atlas, or even a lot of like definition across the top of a model, a lot of times if you over highlight, and you're like, well, now it looks like baby blue, and I wanted that to be like,
yeah,
dark in the recesses. Yeah, just pick up like Vallejo blue ink or something, thin it down with like some water or some thinner, and just do like a couple translucent passes at like even just like straight at your model, like right level with it, and it'll color correct it back to blue, but it'll leave the top a highlighted surface again. A lot of times you're gonna mess it up, the first couple times you do it, but you just come back in and you re-highlight the top parts if you need to, and then you come back with shadows in the bottom and back and forth. The more back and forth you do, the better it's going to look. Like the more natural the shading is gonna appear to be, instead of just like very obviously one angle of application.
yeah. It's a lot of patience too, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So for any of you
yeah.
out
It
there trying it, just remember, take your
Oh,
time.
yes. Yeah, so many times you're like 3 hours into something and you're like, all right, I only allotted 2 hours for this, but it looks like garbage. And then you spend that one extra hour and you're like, all right, no, I'm happy. This is good. When you the frustrated noise you made there reminds me of Hal, our friend, because he's always just like, nope. Like I'm like, Hal, you should do this and maybe try this. He's like, nope, way too much time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm staying within my time bracket, which is totally understandable. Yeah. Yeah, not everybody has like, a bunch of hours to throw at something. And there's
That's
nothing
true.
worse than like trying something and having it fail and then being like, well, I can either live with this, which I hate, or or strip it and do it again, but then it's going to go like a shove to the back of your lineup to paint, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. It's pretty
But
interesting to see and hear, the thought process behind it. So
yeah, I get a lot of solo time painting, so there's a lot of thoughts going through your head over months and months. Um, but I guess back to the commission question. So I went from small time commission work when I was working, and then now that I don't work, I just hang out with my kids and my wife, and you know basically a chauffeur for little people. I try and allot like 5-6 hours in a day, roughly that I paint. So I'll try and have definitely now like a procedure or steps that I follow. Or before I would do a lot of like trying stuff and winging it kind of idea.
yeah, yeah,
Now
nice.
I'll try and have like a rough plan of like what I'm trying to achieve each day, or like over the span of a week, just so I make sure I get everything done that I want to get done.
That's a good way of doing it. I
Yeah,
know I'm
yeah,
pretty sporadic, so it's like the flavor of the day. Yeah, I'm
yeah,
working on this World War II tank.
yeah,
Sprue over there. I could wait.
yeah. Or inspiration, yeah, inspiration hits, and they're just like, sorry, tank, you're getting shoved
Yeah,
back a couple days. I'm gonna do this. I really want to do this time, but you work like a 12-hour day or something, and maybe you were thinking about painting all day, and you get home, and you just don't have the energy to do it.
yeah. No, I'm logging on MechWarrior Online. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Your buddy hits your group chat with like, anybody hopping on? You're like, yeah, 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 I am.
Yeah.
Definitely am.
But talking about games and stuff too, like not only you do commission work and hobby work, but you also had ran some events as well. Like you had your own
Hmm.
events going.
Yeah,
So I know you Ninth Age was your was one of the big ones for you, right?
yeah, yeah. I had always wanted to play Warhammer Fantasy. Like I remember as like a kid reading the rule books all the time, and it was like really, really inspiring and attractive to me. Like all the large unit combat and stuff. So when I started playing war games originally, it was 40K, and I wanted to try fantasy, but everyone kept telling me like, oh, it's 8th edition right now, and they're just launching something called like End Times. We don't know what's gonna happen, so maybe like don't buy a bunch of stuff, wait and see what's gonna happen. Which luckily I followed their advice and I didn't. So yeah, I ended up missing out on the fantasy boat. And then Ninth Age Fantasy Battles launched. I can't remember when, mid 2000 like the teens. And it was the first community. Well, it still is community-driven game where it's like the next chapter of fantasy battles, like
Yep.
Games Workshop would have had. But it's much more balanced. Like everybody's army is good. You don't have to wait like you're once every 3 years for your army book to be good and powerful. Everybody's even playing field where it comes to like power distribution.
Okay.
It's super fun. Yeah, I liked the community. I loved the rules were super easy to interpret. There was not a lot of fights and stuff. Not a lot of like people gaming the rules and being
Oh,
crazy.
okay. Yeah. Argumentative
Yeah,
with each
very
other or something like that.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, not a lot of that happening.
And you had a fair bit of people playing that game, because I remember the one event that I went to there, playing like the Heresy games.
Yeah.
You had quite a bunch of people playing.
Yeah. At the Legion. Yeah, I think that was like I think we had maybe 30, 38, 40 people. Yeah, generally for Alberta, we'd get probably I would say like high 30s to or low 40 turnout for Ninth Age, especially if it was teams. Like I like doing the team events where you have
That's right.
four person or 5-person teams, and then like one of the players is a captain, and then each of you has to take a different army book. We started doing that as well for 40K, maybe, I guess pre-COVID. So nothing for the last 2 years, because it's been like a minefield as an event organizer.
Yeah.
But 3 years previous to COVID, yeah, we started doing that for 40K and Ninth Age. We do combo events where it was both, and it was the most fun at events I would say is playing with like your 3, 4, or 5-person team, just because like you're all in it together, and you're either like winning together and it's an awesome day, or you're all losing together and you're all like whining and complaining about like how bad your matchups were. And
I'll be at the bar.
exactly, yeah. You blaming each other for just like, man, I got a draw. You lost it for us, or whatever, right? Or you look down the row of tables and you're just like looking for that thumbs up or thumbs down from your teammates, and you're getting a bunch of thumbs down. So it's like, all right, Hail Mary, I'll do my best.
Yeah, that's one thing that in events that I have not been able to partake in is like those team events or team
The
challenges
multi-person
and
ones.
stuff.
Yeah.
like multiplayer games. Yeah, I've like big APOC games and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
We just had a tank war. I just had a tank war event at Red Claw here, and it was I had teams of 2, which was great. So
like a doubles, like a 2 people on each side.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a good event because it was, and it's going to be on one of our episodes later on. But it was 2 people per team, and I just kind of matched people up and try to make some teams look pretty even for looking at the tanks that everybody brought, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And then
Did you guys match it like theme wise, like factions or anything?
Yeah. So I tried to. We had an overabundance of Americans. That day. So, trying to do the Axis and Allies part of it, it actually did turn out. And, I had Germans, I think 2 teams of Germans, and then everybody else was like American. There's 1 Canadian, and then a new player of ours had an Italian force, and I was playing as the Soviets, so I went with the Italian player and just went as like captured Soviets kind of thing, tanks.
Okay, yeah.
And it worked out good. But yeah, just everybody had fun, right? Like those team events were really fun to do, and you get to see what happens, and you can see some of the players are kind of like, okay, we're gonna do this, and plot and a little bit, like everybody's getting a little hyped, getting these plans. So we'll take that guy out.
Yeah, it's hard to take multi-person events like as seriously, like if you're a competitive player, because like there's just like a goofy, crazy factor like injected into your games. Like you never know what's gonna happen between like 4 people, more so than just 2 people. But it's if enjoyment wise, it's just more enjoyable, more casually enjoyable to play with a buddy on the other, like on your side of the table, than just by yourself.
Yeah, and it was. brought to my attention, but it was talked about with me is next time kind of I do one of those, we can do like people can pre-make their team kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
like people can group up and, okay, I want to be teammate with this guy. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then they can talk about their force kind of thing, right?
Yeah, and plan before. Yeah, that I think that's probably one of the biggest reasons why the team events are such a success, is because you have 3, 4, 5 people on a team. You all have to pick a different faction, and a lot of the times you're picking a different like type of list as well, right? Like you might have like an artillery guy, a melee guy, a ranged guy, a fast mover guy, a psychic guy, whatever format you're playing or whatever system you're playing. A lot of times we'll have like 3 really aggressive armies that are like matched up with books, army books or codexes that can do that well, and then we'll have like 2 beater lists, like 2 people that just like they don't care what they play. They're not playing to like knock out win everybody. They're just playing to like slog and grind and like be hell for the other person to like come to blows with.
Yeah, just in the grinder. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they like they take pride in that, right? They're just like, no, I'm the beater guy. If you get a matchup that's unfavorable, throw me at him. Like I'm not gonna get tabled, but I'm probably not gonna win. And
yeah,
a lot of the times, yeah.
No, go ahead, Phil.
Well, a lot of times we'll post up lists as well. So I'll get everybody's army lists. I'll say like, hey, team captains, you got to send me, all 4 or 5 of your army lists or whatever in like a Word file. And then I'll organize them all into like one giant, huge, fat post. And then I think it'll be like 2 weeks out, everybody submits their lists, say. And then like a week out, I post up everybody's list, like all across all the teams and the matchups. So like you can talk with your buddies and your team for like a whole week before the event. You know exactly which team you're facing, and you can talk between your guys like, all right, I really want to play, as the Bretonnian player or whatever, or like the vampires player. Like I will definitely face, which team you're playing. So like I definitely will fight like these 3 armies. Like put me in, coach, for these 3, but like don't throw me at these 2. And there's just a lot of strategizing and like shop talk that goes on between your team the week previous to the event, and it's a ton of fun and excitement just talking about it, getting hyped about it.
Yeah, I can see how that would be like pretty exciting to kind of go through and do, because like if you know the players like in the community and you know the teams and stuff, or like the quality of player, know. Like you can be pitting your best player against their best player kind of thing, right?
Definitely, yeah.
So there's that's a whole. We have never really. I think it may have came up once, somewhat like that.
Okay.
And there was like a group of like 10 of us split into 5, 2 teams, and you had to like attack a planet. So you would pit. And this is in the Heresy world, of course. So, it'd be like, okay, who's going to play this guy, right? And it's like, I'll take him on, that kind of thing. Or the mission was slightly different. And you're like, my army's pretty good for this mission. I'll do it,
Yeah.
So
That's awesome. Yeah. You feel more, it's like more interactive or like strategic for sure, where you're just like, you can take pride in like a role that you've designed your army for and then like implementing that role. We went, we did, for Ninth Age Fantasy in 2018, we went to Croatia for the European Team Championships. It was like for Team Canada, which it sounds crazy huge, but there was like very low representation from like North America, just because like it's so far to travel, whatever, right? And it's like a smaller game. Like you go to a game store and you can be like, hey, anybody playing 40K today? And 3 people raise their hand. Or 5 people, and you say like, anybody playing Ninth Age Fantasy? And like one person's like, what? What's that? Yeah. Fantasy's dead. But so it's like basically it was like the 8 people that like had the money and the time off to go could go. But you're right when you say like you just line up your best players for the most favorable matches and just like launch them, just like, all right guys, try and get your 20-0 victories, because the rest of us are gonna go aim for that draw. Or like try not to lose points.
Nice.
But yeah, I love the I think it would be much cooler in a narrative environment. Like if you're playing Heresy and you had like a story attached to it, I think that would be a lot of fun compared to just like picking favorable matches like for points in an event, which is fun if you're a competitive player. But I think it'd be a lot cooler to think like you're storming Istvan, and you're the loyalist army, and like your 2 or 3 buddies with you are also the loyalist forces. I think that would be cool,
Yeah.
like a thematic thing to do.
Yeah, that's the whole thing with a lot of these games, and like a lot of when a lot of people talk about narrative, having certain things or certain interactions with games or little interactions within missions and coming up with ideas of the missions and stuff, right? And even like having specific terrain, like custom terrain
Yeah,
for these events. Or of course, custom terrain takes a long time to do,
it
but
does.
that's a whole other story. But when you go to those kind of events and like you have such an awesome time, right?
Yeah.
Like
Oh, it's like super memorable compared to like
exactly.
anything else. Well, to be fair, like at the other end of the spectrum, the events with the worst terrain are also very memorable. Generally, like especially if you go with a bunch of friends, like that was garbage tables. That's why we all lost.
Yeah.
But
So
you're
yeah, so
right.
that
Yeah.
that has come up. That has come up. Let me tell you, it was a road trip, and that's pretty much what we pinned it on. It was just, you know what? It was a shit event. We could have done this back home. It was a road trip. That's all we kind of chalked it up as, right? So,
Yeah, just a getaway, just a time away with your friends. Yeah,
but
the unique like one-offs, especially like you look over at a system if you're at a convention or something. Like if you're playing, like you and Bill go to the LVO pretty much every year.
mm-hmm.
I went a couple years in the past, and I remember looking over playing on the 40K like championships event where it's like I don't know 300, 400, 500 people. Like it's
Yeah,
getting bigger and
it's
bigger.
insane.
Yeah, and it's like, but it's like for the most part cookie cutter tables. Like
Yeah.
they look fine, nothing wrong with them. Like good amount of terrain, but it's like 2 L-shaped buildings in the middle, scattered terrain on the outsides, and then you look over on the narrative games, like the 40K narrative or the 30K like heresy tables, and you're just like, man, what a story! Like you're literally playing out like
Mm-hmm.
something from a novel. It is so much cooler than just like 2 L-shaped buildings painted, neon green, neon red with like a bad footprint that doesn't have any flock on it.
And
It's just like,
it's
oh, go ahead.
funny how you mentioned, it's like it's telling a story, right?
Mhm.
Um, it's like that World War II bolt action that I had those guys do at your event there that time.
Yeah.
I remember, a couple players from Ninth Age, whatever, coming over. Their games were done. They came over and they were looking at the terrain and stuff, and they're like, "Wow, that looks like I'm watching a movie or something, or telling a
Yeah.
story. I want to play on those boards, right?"
Yeah. It's like a diorama, like a 4x4 diorama. It's like this is like clearly Normandy Beach, or this is clearly like like a French village. Like there's like little signposts and stuff, and like
Yeah.
what's oh, there's like a word that I can never pronounce. It's like shrubs.
The bocage.
Bocage, yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
I know that
Yeah,
one
just
too
all
well.
yeah, just like all these like little touches, and you're just like, yeah, it's like when you go to the model train exhibit as like a kid, and you're just like,
Exactly.
this blows me away, man. This is amazing. This is like a tiny world on a table.
And that's exactly it. And like, I continuously give my boys in the bolt action community props, because like they've made their own terrain, and they've hauled their own terrain. Like they did it to that for that event. They hauled their own stuff in,
Yeah, yeah,
and like they had a plan. Like every round, that, because it was like a de-escalation kind of event.
yeah.
Every round the maps changed, and
Oh, that is
there was a
cool.
theme. So it was like you're storming the beaches, you're fighting inland, now you're going after the bridge and that separates the town from the
Yeah, yeah.
outer areas, right? And like they set everything up, they pre-built stuff, they got stuff painted, they 3D printed, like
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
the kind of stuff I want to do.
Oh,
And
that draws in so many people too. Like it just people
yes,
get hyped and excited about it.
yes.
a lot of times, like at the last couple events I did, I would try and make at least 2 tables. Usually try for 3, like 3 thematic tables that had a lot of terrain, a lot of like unique homemade
Mm-hmm.
terrain that I would do myself, and then I would just raffle off the tables as prizes, and then
Nice.
whoever won them would just take them home, and then they would usually be like the center, like if you've got 20 or 24 tables or something, I try and make sure like they're the four center tables, whatever, and everyone's trying to play on them just because they look really cool, and they're all maybe like a desert one, and then like a city fight one, or a swamp one, or an arctic one, or whatever they are, but it's all very dense and like detailed terrain to match whatever the theme for the table is. And then like they if they win it, they take the mat and all the terrain home with them. But I find like just thinking up ideas and then like implementing them and making them, and then when people play on them, it's like it's super cool and memorable, and everyone's regaling of times, like they remember exactly what happened in their missions on those
Yep.
cool tables, right?
Exactly.
There was a group out of Calgary, a bunch of guys that sadly haven't got to see in the last couple of years just because of current climate, but TOP was the group name. It was a bunch of guys out of Calgary, and they had a duo event every year where it was like 40K and fantasy, and I think it was maybe only 12 to 16 players per system, but they would hold it in like a nice little community center with like a outside barbecue lunch. It was 2 days, I think six games, 5 or 6 games over the 2 days, and we'd all drive down. But every table was unique terrain and missions, and they would put all the missions like far in advance with all the rules, so you could
Nice.
read up and plan your army around it. But it was all missions that like had to do with like pop culture and different like movies and popular fiction. So they had like what was one, like for 40K they played Hill 34, which is a movie reference I'm
Yeah.
not familiar with. Okay, probably like a military movie or an
Yeah.
army movie.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was like a bunch of like hills with like burned out like vedettes and like Valkyrie gunships and stuff, and then they would have like random objectives that would drop from the sky each turn, and like if you were near an objective, you'd have to like move over to it, see what it was that you captured, and sometimes it would be like a resupply that would like bring your ammo back to full or something like that, or your troops back to full. They had a like a Star Wars one where you had like it was what's the 40K when you're space battling? It starts with an M.
Zone Mortalis.
Mortalis, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like a full Mortalis board, and it was like all these like remind me of like StarCraft 1, where you're going through like the Terran worlds, right? And you got to open all the doors and the turrets
The
pop up
bunkers
everywhere.
or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Raiders driving around, yeah, and his little vulture. So yeah, it was like each half of the board was a bunch of corridors, and you either got C3PO or R2D2, and C3PO was crappy at his job and made a bunch more noise, so he drawed more enemies towards you, but he was worth more points. And R2D2 opened the doors faster, but he was worth less points. And it was whoever's army got to the center hangar and got in their ship and took off first won.
Nice.
Yeah, but you couldn't like jump over the walls. You had to move down the hallways and open doors and stuff.
Yeah.
Just a lot of cool ideas like that. Or there'd be like ones with like artillery bombardments hitting the middle of the table. There's one called Thomas the Murder Engine, where it had like a Thomas the Train toy going down the middle of the table, like straight across the middle, and he would drive down the table a random, like you'd roll a 2 or 3 d6, and he would move that far, and then he would broadside everybody, all the models that he touched or like met up alongside along the table,
Yeah.
and just devastate your stuff unless you were hiding in bunkers. But if you were hiding in bunkers, you weren't capturing objectives or killing opponents. So. But it was always like I think I went maybe 2 or 3 years, and every year it was like the most memorable event of the year, just because of the time and the effort people had put in to making all these cool, scenarios and tables.
Nice.
So eventually, that's what I would like to do. Is once we get back to having full events, is I'd like to have a yearly team event, because I really enjoy doing those ones for whatever system. I'd like to do something with you and Bill when it comes to Battletech for sure. That would be high on my priority, and then have something like a 40K or a fantasy as well, where there's like a team event. But I'd also like to start doing something more similar to that, where you're having like unique, custom tailored scenarios, I guess, like a smaller player count, because it's tough to have a lot of tables like that. But something like that where guys just like talk about it the whole year, right? Like with their friends, like what exactly happened or the missions they played or all these crazy
Those
shenanigans.
remember moments. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly, yeah, yeah. I remember playing a really close buddy of mine who was like we were on the same team for a lot of things, but we were like always the top two people in events for like a 2 year span. It was either like he was winning or I was winning, and the other person was second place. And we always like hope we didn't play each other because we were just always like kick each other's butts. And we ended up playing. It was like an Ultra or like a Avengers themed um, map where Ultron was like raising up all these little Necron warriors, which are his like little Ultron drones, and they were trying to get to the center of the table so you could fight each other, like kill each other. It was a 40k game. But you also had to kill the Ultron robots before they got to the center of the map, because if they touched the center thing, it was supposed to be like Sokovia from the movie. If they hit the button, it would like drop Sokovia down onto the earth and like kill everybody on the table, and you both got a major loss.
Hmm.
So it's like you had to balance between like killing off the Ultron robots and killing off your opponent. But if you killed off too much of your opponent, he wouldn't kill off the Ultron robots on his side of the table, and then you would both lose.
That's an interesting take on a game. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
crazy.
it was weird.
But yeah, I can see definitely where that would be like that fun kind of game day event where it's just some crazy fun missions like that with themes and
Yeah.
stuff. And
Yeah, very memorable. Like
Yeah.
you might make an army list for a regular event and just get totally curb stomped, you know. But
Yeah.
or you might make something totally off the wall and do well. But it's always just the enjoyment of hanging out with your buddies and playing something new and exciting.
Sure. All the time, right? All the time. I know that's kind of where I'm kind of at myself too. With like, yes, tournaments. Okay, cool. Like, done a few of them, and they're enjoyable to a point. But doing actual like events where things are custom and the games are going good and people are just having fun and it's just a make it a 1 day or 2 day event kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It has a little bit of a story to it and whatever else down the road to make it that much more memorable for players that will bring
exactly.
people back, right, as well. So definitely with the games out there nowadays and like with the big hype on Battletech, I'm sure things can get going on that and like try to create something once we get back to more events and whatnot, because that's, I know for me, like Battletech is it's one of my favorites for sure. And of course, I'm big into like bolt action as well. So
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the talk of events and games and been playing games for the last little bit now too. It's just the excitement's back, right? So
Yeah, it's felt good since like Christmas, like December, January. Being able to like meet up with people and roll dice in person has been very invigorating for hobby mojo. I think for a lot of people.
Definitely, it'd be great too. Is just like we did, last time we were at your place. There is that kind of camp out kind of game day, at your place or something like that.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
I know I talked with
Make
Bill.
like a weekend of it.
Yeah, I know I talked with Bill too about it. It's like we should rent like a lot, out at some park or something, and just guys come out with their games and their miniatures and just roll games for the long weekend kind of thing. Fire pit, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, totally.
So,
Yeah, there's a couple halls near us, like our place. Like one that I rent for big events. It's a little expensive though. Like if anybody's living in a big city or something, a lot of times you can get cheap community halls, like sort of surrounding places, like little towns and stuff near you. And sometimes it can be as cheap as like, I think at first I was paying $180 for a weekend for a hall that it suits or fits maybe 8 to 10 like 4x6 tables. So like you can't have a huge event there, but like it's like a blast for playing, like Triumph and Treachery or something. Or if you're gonna do like a bolt action thing with like 6 really detailed tables, like awesome. And it has like a kitchen and then a fridge and stuff. And it can get all the way up to $1,200 for a weekend for doing like a big haul. You're gonna have like 150 players at or something. But a lot of times if you get a place like that, it's awesome because people can set up tents outside. They can set up their trailers. You can have fire pits when you close down the hall in the evenings. And it's fun to travel for play. Like it's cool to hang out with your buddies in a hotel in a town you don't live in, but at the same time it's probably way more fun to go camp out someplace where you're playing games all day.
It. Yeah,
hanging out at the fire pit, having some beer or whatever.
Well, beers and those memorable moments come up, and hey, Bugman, hey, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Where's the salted pork,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I can't wait for that. I think this is going to be a really good year for getting back to like meetups and just good clean fun like that in person.
Exactly. Couldn't say it, better than that, man. So, but yeah, I think that's a good place to pretty much end this episode. I think it's
Sounds
just
good.
Getting back to those good times. So again, thanks Phil for joining me on it. This was very enjoyable. It's awesome to hear your side of the story for the hobby and your journey as well.
Anytime. Yeah.
And again, guys, if you are interested in any of Phil's work, Facebook, Instagram, My Little Pony Game Studio, if you see what you like, hit him up. He's always welcoming more commissions usually.
Yeah, generally. Yeah, I think I got a good 2 months ahead of me here, but I'm always squeaking people in. And if you have any questions whatsoever, and you ever see anything on my stuff that you want to know how I did something, or what's a resource you can look at, then just shoot me a message or a comment or whatever. I'm happy to fill you in. I should be I bought a bunch of what do you call it, camera, like a gimbal for my phone camera, microphone, a bunch of other stuff. So I'm going to be doing hopefully some small tutorials. I'm not big into editing. I don't know how to do it. But there's some small staples that I think everybody should pick up, like new painter or intermediate painter or advanced painter. So I'll hopefully be having some videos in the near future, at least, helping out people of how to do stuff that seems tough, but is actually quite easy to do.
Nice.
Yeah.
If you're doing video stuff, I can definitely help you with anything you might need.
Well, that'd be awesome. Yeah, much appreciated. So, and thanks for having me on.
Oh, anytime and every time. Okay, guys, thanks for joining, and we will catch you next time.
See you later, guys.
Trident Wargaming. Build it, paint it, play it.